Martha Lavonne Evans, Marty to those who loved her most, was a 33-year-old from Knappa, Oregon. She had 2 children and loved tattoos. On the night of February 10th, 1990, after a wedding reception in Knappa, her family believed Marty was headed to meet friends for drinks. Marty never arrived. She was never seen again. I'm Ed Dentzel, and this is Unfound. Disappearances may be vastly different from case to case, but one thing we are always trying to do is find the cause. Why did it happen? And if you've been listening to Unfound long enough, you know the cause can take many forms. Sometimes, maybe even often, humans are to blame. Carlos Rodriguez for Zoe Campos. Dennis Bowman for Andrea Bowman. Tyler North's ex-wife and her boyfriend for Tyler North. Yet, drugs are also a common cause. Robbie Hurt, Jay Lushball, Shanna Boydo. Mental health, Devin Bond, Donald Irwin, Ashley Linden. Thankfully, she was alive. But we also might blame a disappearance on a badly designed road, Esther Westenbarger, or even on the weather, Chance Engelbert. Well, with Marty Evans, blame may be hard to assign given all the possibilities. So we're going to start by rounding up the usual suspects. And now a summary of the case. Martha Lavonne Evans, Marty, she even used that name in her high school yearbook, came from a large family with many brothers and sisters who have gone on to have kids who also have many brothers and sisters. Given both her personality and looks, Marty got a lot of male attention. Yet, after high school, things went wrong very quickly. Marty married the wrong guy. They had 2 children, but one of them was eventually discovered to not be Marty's husband's. And even after the divorce, Marty and her ex still got together for adult activities. Marty had jobs, but even there, she ended up hooking up with her supervisor, who was not a good influence on her. Maybe most distressingly, while being a marijuana smoker for years, Marty had moved on to crack cocaine by the time 1990 rolled around. So, on February 10th, 1990, Marty was a bridesmaid in her friend Sally's wedding. Much to everyone's surprise, Marty's supervisor, Tim, showed up even though he was not invited. The 2 got along fine, and he left after the ceremony. However, later at the wedding reception, witnesses overheard Marty talking on a payphone. To this day, these people believe Marty was talking to Tim, as his name was used several times. However, the content of the conversation was not clear. After this, Marty left the reception. She stopped for gas in Knappa, but the truck she was driving, her brother's, would not restart. Marty called him, and he showed up fairly quickly. Once the truck was running again, Marty left, not telling her brother where she was going, although others believed she was headed to meet friends and family for drinks in another town. She and the truck were never seen again. The men in Marty's life were questioned, but police could not prove anything. The toughest disappearance to analyze is the one in which either a person or drugs or mental health or an accident or a combination of some or all could be the cause. Even 9 years into this podcast, I'm still not sure there will ever be an easy way to come to firm theories in these situations. Contemplate if AI could be the fix to this problem, while you also try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, why would Marty have called Tim if the two had just seen each other at the wedding? Number 2, what are we to make of fruitless efforts by a scuba team to find Martha and the truck in local bodies of water? And number 3, how did Marty's purse end up where it was eventually found a week later? Marty's family can't help but think foul play is the cause of her disappearance. The guest for this episode is Marty's sister, Linda. Unfound News. If you've ever wondered what my theory is regarding the disappearance of Amy Bradley, you can find it in this past Monday's live show on YouTube. It was quite the analysis. Next, for the general public, the newest Unfound now is out. I take a look at the recent disappearance of Stephen Wright. No, not the comedian. For Patreon and YouTube members, the newest Found episode covers screenwriter Gary DeVore. Finally, my birthday was a very low-key event. As it usually is, thank you for all the birthday wishes. Of course, the chickens whose wings I cooked weren't too happy about the whole thing. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the sister of Marty Evans, Linda. Linda, welcome to Unfound.
I'm glad to be here.
Let's start here, and we were just talking about this before we started this recording. Linda, you really have to tell everybody about your family and all the kids and how many sisters and brothers you have. The numbers are quite impressive. Why don't you tell the listeners about that, just to give everybody the lay of the land of the Evans family?
Well, it's a Benson family, actually.
All right. Very well.
Yes, my name is Linda Benson Weyerup. Hers was Martha was her real name. Benson Evans was her married name.
Okay.
My mom and my bio dad were married in July of 56. Before the end of the year, they had me. I'm the oldest of their 7 children. 10 and a half months later, my sister Marty was born. Year and a half after that, my sister Joyce was born. Year and a half after that, my brother Donnie was born.
Wow.
In 1961, when Donnie was born in January of 61, my sister Rhonda was born in December of 61. And my brother Mike was born in December 62, and my brother Tony was born in July of 64. My mom was a little bit shy of being 25 years old when she had 7 kids. And basically, we were tight. I mean, you have that many kids together, it's pretty much a litter, and we were pretty close growing up. And my dad wasn't around. I won't say where he was at. Well, I will say he was in prison.
Okay.
For most of the time, and my mom raised us by herself. We went to church a lot. We didn't have, there was, nothing going on in our house as far as drinking, smoking, anything like that. She was kind of ahead of her time. She wouldn't allow people to smoke in our house, stuff like that. Yeah. Anyways, we grew up, we didn't have money, but we always had each other. And my sister and I were pretty tight. We were, I almost think like twins, because it seemed like we couldn't be without each other, up until we were teenagers. She ended up growing taller than me, so everybody thought she was the oldest. So by the time we were six, she was taller than me. And she kept growing, and that at 11 or 12, somewhere between 11 and 12, she stopped growing. She got 5'1.5", 2, and stopped growing, and she was that size for the rest of her life. She never got any bigger and never got any taller. Huh. And then I caught up with her and surpassed her a little bit, but so we were pretty tight during the years. And then my sister Joyce is only a little bit younger, and then my sister Rhonda. We're all us 4 sisters were all pretty close together. Yeah. I mean, none of us were too far apart in years anyway. And then there ended up being another brother born in 1975. My mom remarried in 1973 to my stepdad Joe, who was a wonderful, wonderful man. He really was the daddy that didn't have to be. And we miss him so much. He was our guiding light, basically. He was kind of like my mom's savior, even though she was doing okay.
Yeah.
He came along, just made it way better. We moved.
Wow.
We were living in Portland in the city. We moved to this small town by Astoria, Oregon, and he was a logger. And, they had the baby together, and life was pretty good. And I wanted to move back to Portland since I got out of school because I didn't like moving here. And I ended up getting married in 1975 and having my own kids and staying here in the same town. So I never left. But my sister Marty also stayed. We were all here. And she married a guy local who was Rich Evans and had her 2 kids. And they didn't stay married very long, though. There was some stuff going on between them, too. And he wasn't that nice of a person.
But you have to tell everybody today, now here in 2025, and by the way, everybody should know we're doing this interview on August 3rd of 2025. Right now, tell everybody how many, of course you already went through how many kids your mother had, but how many grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids are there now? It's really crazy.
Well, all in total, there's 29. Us 8 children had our own kids, of course, and that made 29 grandchildren.
Wow.
And then them children have had children, and now there's 44, almost 45. Actually, is it 45? We just had another one born a couple months ago.
Yeah.
45. I think there's 45 great-grandkids now.
Wow.
Anyways, and then there's 2 great-great-grands because I have 2 grandkids. Mm-hmm. And another one's on the way from my sister. It'll be my sister's first great-grandchild. So that'll be my mom's third double great. And she's 86, and she lives about a mile from me with her boyfriend because my stepfather passed away 9 years ago, and she got with another really nice man named Corky, and they live a little life over about a mile from me.
Yeah.
And they're happy. She's as happy as a clam.
Okay.
And, and it's all good. I mean, it's a big family, and we're still pretty tight. I mean, we have our own lives, too, but, we just had a birthday party for her Saturday. She turned 86, and we all got together at the Moose Lodge. All 6 of us remaining kids were there, and some of the grandkids, there wasn't a whole lot of them. I think all in total there might have been 20, maybe. Yeah. And then, of course, my great-grandchildren that live around here. So, anyways, but it turned out, and then a lot of friends. My mom she worked at the hospital for 25 years, so a lot of friends were there, and it was a good deal. And she's, she still drives. In fact, I was just down at my grandson's house, who lives at her house because she lives with her boyfriend. We were just down there, and her and her boyfriend drove down there. She goes down there and sees how Colton is, who is my grandson, living there and renting from her. And she's just, happy they were going on a drive somewhere and going to go eat dinner, We live out in the country. We're out in the box, not too far away from the Great Columbia River is about a mile from our house, and it's a highway, but it's not a highway like you think of a highway. It's, gets you from point A to point B. But she's happy. And, I have to say, for someone who pretty much raised 7 kids by herself, I was 16, not quite 16 or 16 when she married my stepdad. Okay. And so I feel like I was already pretty much raised by then, but he still was there, and he was still for my family. And, he did the best he could do by all of us. And I don't think anybody could have done any better because he was really a great man. And it's been 9 years, and we still miss him. But anyway, and he's been there. He's been there through with all of us through everything. And so we wish he was still here. But anyway,
all right.
Short, life's not too bad, really. We miss our brother, and we miss our sister that we've lost. But if life goes on, and I wish she was here to see all this because my sister would have. She had a boy and a girl, and they're now 47 and 44. And the girl has 3 kids, so my sister would have 3 grandkids, but she's not here to see them. But I try to.
Let's talk more about you and Marty. Close in age. In fact, you said you're only 10.5 months apart. So sometime during the year, you would actually both be the same age.
Yes.
When you
7 weeks.
when you compare, contrast, you're similar. You and your sister. Marty, similar personalities, different personalities. How would you compare and contrast?
The only way we were similar, actually we were a lot different in a lot of ways, but the only way we were similar is we like to live life to the fullest. We weren't scared of telling somebody, what we think. Mm-hmm. Kind, love animals, love family. Family was the most important. There's nothing else. We always agreed that there's nothing in the world more important than family. We always, would laugh about having money and being rich and stuff, but it really doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. And that's all, and I know that if she was around and that was me that disappeared, she would have died trying to find me. And so I'd like to say the same thing, but I also have a family that I got to take care of. And it kind of consumed me when she first disappeared in 1990. It consumed me that year, and I had to slow down on that because you got to worry about the ones that are here. And I know that she'd think that too. Take care of your own. But in the same time, we want to keep her memory alive and hope someday to get answers to find her. But she would have been, I feel like if it was somebody else in the family that was missing, she would have been right with us, tooth and nail, because that's just the kind of person she is. It's just bizarre.
Let's talk about some of these. Yeah, let's talk about some of these things. Let's first start with her marriage to Richard, and we should note Richard is deceased, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's start with that. Of course, you said that she got, you already in passing mentioned this, that she got married, and what went on there? They got divorced. Why didn't that marriage work out? Once again, we need to set this kind of up. Everybody needs to understand kind of the situation.
Rich was a tall, pretty handsome logger. He felled trees and ran equipment. He was a manly man, I would say pretty much male chauvinist. He wanted his wife to be this place and do this and do that. And my sister kind of went along with it for a while, but then she sort of went off on her own direction. And he was, in the meantime, also messing around with other people and partying and never coming home and stuff like that. Finally, she had it with him, and so they ended up splitting up. But it wasn't good either. But they never. This is the whole thing: is they got divorced. She pretty much walked away with nothing. But there's a big but here. She never quit being involved with him, if you get my drift.
I see.
They were connecting together any chance they got.
Okay, well, we had a situation like that.
I went to pick her up a couple times from different places they were at. So, and he had since remarried. He remarried in the late 80s and had 3 kids with another girl that was younger than him. And so, I think that might have had a little bearing on why she isn't here. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. All right. So how long, very quickly, how long were they married and she left him? How long were they married?
They were married in May of 77 and they divorced in May or June of 1980.
Okay.
Because Andrew was not quite a year old. Andrew was born in June of 79. By the time Andrew was a year, 14 months old, they were divorced.
Okay. All right, but you did say even though they got divorced, they still got together once in a while? We'll just put it like that?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
I don't know any details because I didn't really want to know because I thought she was playing with fire, and I told her that.
Okay.
She pretty much told me to mind my own business.
All right, so what did she do?
I didn't want to cause any problems, so I just stepped back.
What did she do? What did she do like after she got divorced? How did her life go after that?
And she started dating. She was always dating others. She had a lot of boyfriends. We were trying to keep track of them. We couldn't track them all, but she ended up living with this guy named Tim Hayes in Longview, and another one in Astoria named Mike Abrams, and there was another. Oh gosh, there was just a string of them, and she moved to Salem and was living with these guys that sold trailers, and she was working in the office, and then she met up with a guy named Paul Caffrey and ended up moving to Ashland, and she lived down in Ashland from 84 maybe, 84, and then moved back to Astoria in early 89. Because they couldn't get along either. But they like to party a lot, and then partying people, they like drama, and that's where we're the opposite. She was the party girl, wasn't happy with settling down. I tent with my husband and my kids, and I never had no desire to do any of that kind of stuff, and so that's where we were different. Actually, we grew up, I think we were tight, and then we just went different ways. I mean, I don't judge anybody. People do what they do for whatever reason. As long as no one gets hurt, who cares, but there was people getting hurt, and now I realize that probably it wasn't okay, but you can't make somebody change. You just can't. I wish that if I could go back, I would say, hey, don't do that, but I didn't really say that to her. I wished I would have.
What did she do for work? What was her career?
When she disappeared, she was actually working at Fred Meyer as a clerk. Checking people out and all that kind of stuff. She was still employed there when she disappeared.
What is Fred Meyer?
Fred Meyer is a big, huge department store that has everything. One-stop shopping. It's got the groceries, it's got the clothes. It's a giant store ring here in the Northwest. There's, I don't know how many of them. There might be 50 of them. I don't know. They're big stores. They're big markets, you know.
Okay.
So that's kind of the thing she did. And she really loved animals. I know when she was in Ashland, she worked part-time in a veterinarian down there. And that was probably her favorite thing she did. She loved animals and she loved horses. And that's another thing we were different, is I wasn't really a horse person. Well, all three of my sisters are, and I'm not. Okay. They love them horses. Well,
okay.
You know.
Let's move on to this. Now, I did get the impression when we talked, and of course I've read quite a bit about her disappearance and her in general. But, you know, it seems to me maybe getting around to that 1990 area, that, you know, in the 89-90, that she was maybe a little bit down on her luck. Would you say that was your perception as well?
When she moved up here, I don't think it was for a good reason. We heard rumors that there was drugs involved and stuff like that, because she moved up here pretty abruptly. She didn't really ever want to live here again. She liked Ashland, and all of a sudden she was back and lived with my mom basically in Brownsmead, which is only 4 miles from me. And here she still was dating these guys that she'd met here and there, and I don't know, it was kind of weird. At that point, there was definitely something going on with her, because she wasn't the same. I could detect that, and you know, and she would say stuff to me about dope, and she'd say, don't ever try it, because, you know, it's not good, because once you get into it, it's hard to get out of it. Mm-hmm. Well, of course she's going to know that, because she did it herself, and I was just naive. I didn't realize how bad it was, how bad the drug scene really is when you're into it.
Yeah.
If you don't live it, you don't know if you don't live it, you know. I've learned a lot since then. I probably could have lived my whole life without knowing any of that stuff, but guess what? You learn it. So,
Did you ever ask her, hey, Marty, what's going on here?
She smoked pot. She always smoked pot. She did that since she was in school, and that, you know, that's neither here nor there. I don't think it's that horrible, but she got into something else. I'm pretty sure crack cocaine, and because these guys that she dated, I know that's what they were doing, and I think it got her in trouble. I think she was, you know, between that and the ex-husband, who also was into the drugs. They were all into it. It seemed like everybody was into it back then. You know, it was cocaine back then.
Okay.
So,
did you ever try to get her? Did you ever try to take her to rehab or anything like that?
You know, we talked about that one time, about a month before she left. She said, "I really got to do something, because my life just can't keep going like this." And I said, "Do you ever think about going to rehab?" She goes, "Well, I don't think it's that bad." I said, "I don't think you have to be that bad. Nobody ever thinks they're that bad. But if you're doing stuff that you have to hide from people and run away from people, and it makes you feel uneasy," and I could tell she was uncomfortable about something, and I said, "Maybe you should get help." Well, at that point, they were already planning this wedding for her friend Sally, and so she said, "Well, maybe when the wedding's all over and everything, I'll regroup and quit my job and get a rehab and start a life somewhere else." And you know, so that was in my mind too. When she disappeared, I thought maybe she went ahead and did it, but I don't know where the means were at. She had no means. We've checked out every source of whoever it was, and nah.
Okay.
You know, where they start you a new life, the police do, because you narc on somebody or whatever. But they assured us, the FBI that wasn't the case.
All right, let's move on to this. At the time of her disappearance, she was driving your brother's truck. Why was that?
She had no rig. She didn't have a car. So when she moved back here, whatever she was driving, I can't remember what it was, some little gold car, and it was trash. Joe just told her to park it in the field, and we'll get you something else to drive. Well, he tried to keep it together, and then finally she just didn't have it, so she borrowed my brother's truck. She's probably been driving it, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. It was like right around her birthday time in September. Her birthday's in September, that she got the truck for my brother, and you know, he said, just, you know, I'll keep the insurance on, I'll make the payments, you just put the gas in it. And so, yeah, and she was using it to go to work and stuff.
And remind us all, how long did she have that truck before the disappearance?
About 5 months.
About 5 months.
Donnie had borrowed, he had it a few months before that. He bought it as a used truck that had payments, and was making payments on it. He had to keep making the payments on it because he gave her permission to use it.
Right.
So he was paying for a truck that wasn't even there for 6 months after she disappeared.
Okay. All right, let's move on to this. We've already talked about Richard, but you just mentioned Tim in passing. Let's just talk about him in general. Do you know how he and Linda met? Did they live together? How long? What can you say about Tim?
Yeah. They met because she got that job at Fred Meyer. He was the manager there, one of the managers.
Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna guess. We went to Red Line on her birthday that year before in '89. It was the last birthday I spent with her. But anyways, and we were at the Red Line, and he came in. She said, "Oh, this is my guy that I'm dating now is coming in here to meet us." And I was like, "Okay." We're sitting there, and this creepy guy walks in. He wasn't. He was icky. And she goes, "Oh, there's Tim." And I was like, "No."
Oh, no.
Like, he just didn't look right at all. And I was like, "No." And so she goes, "That's Tim. He's one of the managers at Fred Meyer." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm going to guess they dated 6 months, maybe.
Okay, was that near the disappearance time, or when was this, do you think?
This was like, her birthday was like 5 months before she disappeared, or 4 months before she disappeared. It's the first time I met him. But they dated a couple months before that. So I'm going to say she dated him a total of 6 months before she disappeared.
Okay. And so I get the idea that you did not think very much of him.
I did not.
Okay, did you really have a lot of interaction with him during that time, or did you just see him and that was about it?
I said, then I really didn't like when he said this. He said something about, we were having a beer, and he goes, "Well, you guys are just pussies." Something about, "You guys are just drinking beer. You should have something better than that." And I was like, "Yeah." And my sister goes, "My sisters don't do that." Because we were all there, all 4 of us. Mm-hmm. And she goes, "My sisters don't do that shit." And so it was dropped after that. But that really rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, "What? You don't say that to people you don't know."
Okay. Let's move on to this guy. So there's another guy that you mentioned to me in passing, and I just have him as the tattoo guy. What can you say about him? Once again, we're going to talk about these guys more in depth later, but just in general, who's the tattoo guy?
His name is Pierre Z. Berg, Z/Berg. He had a tattoo parlor in, it's south of Tacoma, a little town by Tacoma, Washington, called the Electric Rose. And I'm not sure where Marty met him. I think she met him when she was still in Ashland or maybe in Longview. One of them towns. She'd met him before that, and she kind of touched bases with him constantly the year she had moved home, after she moved home. She came down to see her once at my mom's. Another creep. But she had tattoos. Did I tell you that? Marty had tattoos.
Yeah, I knew that. Yes.
Yeah, she was a tattoo person before it was popular. He'd done that to her, and she even made a couple magazines and stuff. And it was really pretty. They did a really good job, I have to say. I'm not into tattoos. I don't even have one. But she was into it. That was her thing. So, yeah, I think he came here just to give her some money. I'm not sure why he came here, or drugs or something, or both. I don't know. But my mom kind of got the same feeling when he showed up. He had a driver that drove in here and showed up and just wanted to see Marty. He waited for her, and then she got home, and they got in the car and went away for a while and came back, and then he left. So I'm not sure. I don't know if he was a drug source, what he was doing. We're not sure.
Okay. And we should note, Tim is still alive, but the tattoo guy, he's dead too.
He died 5 years ago, yeah. 6 years ago.
Okay, so these are the guys that were in Marty's life around the time of her disappearance. Her ex-husband, Richard, who, as you stated, she's still getting together with him. We had a similar situation with the disappearance of Tyler North. Then we have Tim, who was her boss at a job, and then we have this guy who she knew through getting tattoos.
Yeah. Then also, let me add this, and I didn't mention this to you talking before.
Okay.
Marty's son, Andrew, ended up not being Rich's. Marty had an affair with Rich's best friend, Clyde Ingram, who was also a tree faller. Clyde Ingram was also involved with a lady who disappeared out of Rainier. She was a bus driver. I did not know this information for years and years. I found out about 5 years ago.
Okay.
There's another unsavory character, too.
All right, I will have to check that out. Do you believe that this other disappearance is still unsolved?
I believe so. I think they found something of hers by the river. So they thought maybe she jumped in. They weren't sure, but her family says with kids and all, they don't think she did it by herself. They think she got a little help if she did go there. Because, that Rainier is right on the Columbia River. It's a town. And it's a deep river, that river. I mean, the big ships go up the river to Portland, so that's how deep it is. So, no, they never, as far as I know, they never solved that either. I can't remember her name. If I could find her name, I would give it to you. I don't remember what it is. But a friend of Clyde's that I went to school with knew about this. I knew nothing about it. I had never heard about it. And then I know her, and I've known her for a long time. She wouldn't lie to me. But I guess they even questioned him about it, but they couldn't attach him to nothing. So he had dated her is all,
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this. So, I'm getting the idea that people might have been worried about Marty in late 89 into 90. You've already talked about the guys that are in her life. You've talked about drugs, and not just marijuana, but crack, which we know is pretty serious. Would you say that your family was worried about her in the early 1990?
Oh, yeah, everybody was. They knew she'd changed in the last few months. It got really bad after that last birthday when she turned 32. It seemed like she kind of sunk into a deep hole. She acted kind of more depressed. Didn't really want to be around a whole lot of us. She was around me. She pretty much stayed at my house. Like, it was almost like she was hiding half the time. Didn't want nobody to know she was there. But, of course, I'm not going to tell her no,
Right.
And her son, Andrew. She had custody of Andrew and then her daughter that was Rich.
Right. Okay.
So,
If you can say, did you ever have any conversations with your mother, being that she was living with your mother or your other sisters or siblings, about Marty? Hey, we need to do something. We're a little, afraid of all these things.
I did. More than one occasion, I tried to talk to my mother, and she was in denial. She, to this day, is in denial about my sister being on drugs.
I see.
So, yeah, there's no talking to her about it. But me and my siblings all agreed that it was definitely an issue. She definitely needed to definitely had a problem. And I told them, I said, hey, after this wedding, I think we need to get together and do something because she's going somewhere that ain't good, And
right.
My little brother, Mike, of course, he always said years ago that the way Marty lived, as sweet as she was and we loved her to death, the way she was living, she wasn't going to live to be an old person.
Yeah, well, I can see
that
why.
was kind of that's his opinion, and it kind of made me feel bad and mad at first, but now it sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
Time does that to you. It kind of settles you down a little bit, and you start seeing things with different eyeballs, and your heart lets go of, what it was trying to hang on to, and you start listening to things that you shouldn't have listened to before.
What was the situation with her kids? You had two kids. Richard have custody. She had custody. Did the kids live with her and your mother? Or
no? Marina never left her dad. Rich was bound and determined to keep Marina because he was going to do a better job raising her. She's an addict on the streets of Portland, by the way. Anyways, and Marty kept Andrew because Rich knew that Andrew wasn't his. And so Marty had custody of him, and so Andrew lived with my mom, with Marty, when they came back here. And he always had lived with her. No matter where she was at, he was with her.
Okay.
She would have never left him. No way.
Okay. I need to ask you one more thing, being that this is a big part of this disappearance, the wedding. Who was getting married, and how long was this wedding planned, and how long was it that Marty knew she was going to be part of the wedding party? What can you say about this wedding that occurred that day?
Okay, they started planning the wedding that summer before, so the summer of 89. And my sister Rhonda, who actually went to school with Sally, Rudat was her name before she got married, went to school with my sister Rhonda, who was 2.5 years younger than Marty. But Sally and Marty hit it off because they were more like party girls, and so they hit it off. And they actually lived together down in Ashland, too. So they were pretty good friends. But when it came down to it, Rhonda was the maid of honor. Marty was in the wedding because she was kind of acting wishy-washy about even wanting to go. So Rhonda ended up being the maid of honor. And then Marty was in it, and then their friend Dana was the other. There was just one maid of honor and two bridesmaids, Marty and Dana. Mm-hmm. And that was it. But yeah, it had been planned for quite a while. She was marrying a guy named Chuck Parlare, and they dated since like 87 because they had a boy together named Buddy. Or no, Christopher. Buddy was born later. Okay. Christopher was not quite 2 when they got married.
Okay. So Marty knew that she was going to be part of this, of course, as most weddings plan well in advance. She knew that she was going to be in this wedding for a long time, and this is not some...
My sister Joyce made the dresses. Yeah, my sister Joyce made the dresses.
Okay, so she knew that this wedding, she knew where it was going to be, where it was going to be held, all that type of stuff.
Yep.
All right, and I also have to ask you one more thing. Tim was at the wedding.
Yes.
How did he get...
He was not invited.
Yeah, how did he get invited?
He didn't get invited, he just showed up. It's a public church right over here. In fact, I'm looking at the church right now. I live right by it right now. Isn't that weird?
Wow.
Yeah. It was called the Knappa Lutheran Church then. Now it's a Christian Advent church because the Lutheran thing went out. But he just showed up before the wedding started. They'd already was walking up the aisle, and he came in and sat in the last pew.
So he was not invited. He showed up anyway.
Yeah.
Did he? Of course, he knew Marty, but did he know anybody else?
Just us, casually. Like, I just met him that one time and seen him at Fred Meyer a couple times, but that's it.
That's it.
And he must have known Sally probably because of Marty. But
did Marty admit that she invited him to come? What did Marty have to say about this?
Because she asked him as soon as it was over, "What the heck are you doing here?"
Okay. So your opinion is that she was even surprised that he was there.
Yes.
Okay.
Something was going on. There was something going on. Something was stirring. We all kind of looked at each other like, what the hell's going on there? Because she looked pissed.
Okay. All right. You were there. I was not. I believe you. Okay.
Right.
Let's just go now through February 10th regarding the timeline for that day as far as when the wedding happened, where it happened, the reception. Give us an idea of the timeline of that day. And, of course, you're there. You see Marty there. She's in the wedding. Kind of put that all together.
Okay, the wedding started at 1 o'clock. Okay, pretty much my whole family was there. My sisters, me, my brother, Mikey was there, and I think I only had one brother. The other three were supposed to, but they never showed up. Anyways, but we're all there, and it's a pretty small wedding. I'm going to say there's 60 people, maybe, with both sides of the family, because Brudet's family wasn't very big, and on the other side was Chuck, and he didn't have anybody, so we were pretty much all on the Rudat side because that's the only family we really knew. Anyways, so then the wedding happened, then I kind of out of the corner of my eye seen him come and sit in the pew. I wasn't even sure what was going on. The wedding takes about 35 minutes, not quite even 45 minutes of what's supposed to take. It's over with. We're kind of collecting in the little outside area, and everybody's saying, hey, go to Rudat's house, which is about 2/3 of a mile from the church, right around the corner. They're going to have, because they have a couple of big family room there and a big garage. They were having a big reception there for Sally and Chuck and everybody in the wedding party, and we all kind of headed over there, and there was food and stuff. So, then we're talking, it's like 3 o'clock and something, and we all kind of hung out there, and there was booze, and Marty was drinking, and at about 5, we decided to go into Astoria. My husband and I were going to go watch the Buster Douglas Mike Tyson fight. It was on a big View TV, which, back then was a big deal.
Yes.
And so Marty was pretty much on her lips by then. It wasn't quite dark outside. I remember when I was leaving, it was just, so it must have been, it's February, So it's still pretty dark out at 6 o'clock, and then getting dark at 6. We left the town, it was about 6, I guess, by the time we left. And she kept asking me if I had any money, and I said, I don't have $1. Really, I don't. So we went to town. This is before cell phones. Nobody has cell phones or anything.
Right.
So we left, and we told her when we left, and my sister Rhonda and Joyce were also leaving about the same time as I was. Us early bird people, we don't stay and party all night either way. But we were all going to meet at the Hong Kong after the reception, which would probably be over, 7, 8 o'clock. They were scheduled to leave on their honeymoon, I think, at 7:30 or something like that. So everybody's going to be gone by then. So we said, hey, the fight will be over by 8:30 or 9. Let's all meet at the Hong Kong restaurant, which is this end of Astoria, about 12 miles from where the wedding was. Let's all meet there later on, and you guys be all good. And so Stephen and I take off. We go to Warrington to where the fight was at, which is the other side of Astoria, so about 15 miles away. In the meantime, of course I didn't know that till the next day, but Marty had left the reception, driving the truck, went to my mom's, got her dress off, but still had her jacket on. Then I think her dress was, I don't know where her dress ended up being. I can't remember if she took it with her. I don't know if we still have it. Anyways, she asked my mom for some money. Joe gave her $5 because that's all he had on him. And she was tried to call. My mom said she tried to call on the phone. She thinks she was trying to call Tim. She wasn't sure. And she said, "Are you sure you just want to stay home?" Because you could tell she was about half in the bag, Yeah. She goes, "No, I'm going to go. I told the girls I'd go meet him in town. And so I'm going to go back to Logger for a minute. And then about when it gets close to 10, I'll head to Astoria and meet the girls." So, when she started going out, she turned around, gave my mom a big hug while she was at the sink doing dishes. The mom said that was weird because, why didn't she just do it before she left? Anyway, and she got in her truck and she watched them drive. They watched her drive away. Well, my stepdad had just fixed that truck because it had broke down like a week before, and he had to do some little thing to it. And it was sitting at the house for a couple days. And I think my mom took Marty to work a couple days. Anyway, this is going to fit into a story later.
Okay.
But anyway, he asked her how the truck was running, and she said fine. So then she goes to the logger, and that's where she gets on the phone. She orders a beer, gets on the phone, talking to everybody says was Tim. I wasn't there. I'm just going by what witnesses say. They kept hearing her say Tim. Hey, Tim. No, Tim, I don't want to. Why, Tim? Why?
And so if I can jump in just for a moment. So she went to this place and used the payphone to call Tim.
The Logger. It's called the Logger Restaurant. It's right here in Knappa.
Okay. All right, please.
And their bar is called the High Climber Room. And at that point, this is 1990. There was a payphone on the wall.
Yep.
Nobody had other phones out. So that's what you used if you had to use a phone.
Okay.
So she was on the payphone, and Lorelei, my friend, was the bartender, and then Chrissy, my other friend, was waitressing, and Melinda, my other friend, was cooking. And I worked there too, but I wasn't working that day because I was at the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so then she's clearly upset, and they're like, Lorelei's like, are you sure? Okay, because, I can give you a ride home, da-da-da. And Marty's like, no, I told the girls I'd meet them in town, and everybody just let her go, I guess. I don't know why they didn't make her stay, but, you just don't think, till it's after the fact, you don't think about it. Anyways, so she took off and left there. It was, pretty late. They said about 9:30. And she went to D&D Market because she had that money. She had the money Mom gave her, so she stopped at D&D Market, got one beer, which at the time probably cost $1, and the rest in gas in the truck. Well, when she went to go get in the truck, it wouldn't start. She called my brother Mike from the store. My friend Carrie Wing was working. Marty used the phone to call my brother Mike, who only lived a mile down the road, to come and help her. He came and jumped her truck. It's sitting at the gas pumps. Jumped her truck. He said, are you okay? You're going to go home? Where are you going? She said, no, I'm going to Astoria. He goes, be careful because that cable wire is loose. It's probably going to go dead again. Anyways, he went in the store, and when he turned around, she was just taking off up Highway 30 towards Swenson. Okay, there's Knappa, and then there's Swenson, the next town before Astoria. And Swenson is where Rich lives and where her old house was. She lived in with him.
Okay.
I believe she went there to get some more money or whatever she was getting.
Well, we don't want to get into speculation. We're just sticking to the. We'll just stick to the facts. He sees her driving off. That's the last time anybody sees her.
Yep.
Okay.
Jumped the car, and he was going to try to follow her, but she was already out of sight.
Okay. Let me ask you this, just being that you were there and experienced her, but you were not the last person to see her.
I was not.
Yeah.
My brother,
is it very possible that Marty was drinking and driving?
Oh, very possible. In fact, it's probably very probable, yes.
Okay. All right. So you've explained this. Goes there, eventually makes this call. We're going to talk about this call a little bit later. It's believed that she's talking to Tim, but I suppose it could be somebody else, but I think it's accepted that she's talking to Tim. The truck breaks down. She calls for help. The truck gets fixed by two people that we don't suspect have anything to do with her disappearance.
No.
They see
one's
her.
A store person, the other one's my brother.
Yeah, they see her drive off, never to be seen again.
Correct.
Okay, and what time about was this when she drove off?
Somewhere between 9:30, quarter to 10, because the store closed at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to this. What was the first red flag when somebody realized that Marty was missing? What was it?
Okay. This is on Saturday. The wedding was on Saturday, February 10th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Monday morning, Mary Jo Rudat, who was Sally's mother, kept the two boys. There was Chris, and Buddy was just little. I don't think he was even walking yet. Sally's other son that they had not too long before they got married. Anyway, and Mary Jo had to go to work, and Marty was supposed to go get the boys. Told Sally she'd go get the boys, supposedly. Well, so Mary Jo's sitting there waiting, and she never showed up. And so she called my mom. She said, hey, is Marty there? Because she's supposed to come get the kids at 8 o'clock this morning. I have to go to work. And my mom goes, well, she's not here, So maybe she's just sleeping it off somewhere, whatever. They tried to kind of, she got someone else to get the kids anyway. And then my mom called me and told me, and I'm like, well, that's weird, because Marty does a lot of things, but she does promise and she always loved children. She would have went and got them kids. Something ain't right.
Yeah.
So we waited and waited, thinking maybe she'll show up sometime during the day to get the kids, because they were still at Sally's or Mary Jo's house. She just had I think she had the neighbor come over and watch them, I think is what it was. Anyway, and so maybe she'll show up during the day, sometime between 5 o'clock before Mary Jo gets home. Nope, never showed up. That's weird. When my mom called, nope, never showed up. And so I said, well, that is really weird. So let me call a few people around and see if they've seen her. So I called the logger, and then they told me she'd been there, and, everybody's seen her at the reception. I called, who else did I call? My brother, because he was the one that jumped her.
Yeah.
And that's when he told us we called to see if he'd seen her, because, he hadn't been to the wedding, but had he seen her anywhere? And he said, by the way, I jumped her in the truck last night. He was the last one to see her. At that point, then we thought, that's weird. So she should have been, there was no reason why she wouldn't have met us at the Hong Kong. There's no reason she was heading that direction. Somewhere between when she left in town, something happened. But, that's like you said, it's hearsay. But my brother was the last one to see her, and she was heading direction of Astoria.
And is there, in retrospect, is there any reason that nobody noticed she was missing on Sunday?
No. Marty was what she was. I mean, Andrew was at my house. She wasn't worried about him. She knew he was safe there. She would stay gone with her boyfriends for a couple days, and so that's why it wasn't that big a deal, because if anybody else I knew didn't come home the next day, I'd have been around within, a few hours.
Right.
But I just assumed, because I hadn't heard nothing, I just assumed that she was home. Or over at Tim's, or wherever she said she was going. When she didn't, I had thought it was a red flag when she didn't show up at the Hong Kong. We're talking, we get there at 10:30, and we wait, we sit and listen to the band, and it's about midnight, and I said, oh, gee, that's weird. Marty must have went to Tim's. She never stopped. I guess she forgot. And then Joyce is like, well, she was drinking a little bit. Maybe she was sleeping it off or something. So I kind of felt weird when she didn't show up there even, because usually us girls get together. She didn't miss it,
And that would have been on Saturday night? Or
Saturday night.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were right then? So you get, hey, nobody seems. What was your knee-jerk reaction? Did you you said, well, that's a little weird, but were you thinking, she's with one of these guys, or what?
Yeah, I figured she got drunker than we thought she was, and she slept it off somewhere, got stuck somewhere, sitting in a bar, or who knows, because people get that drunk, they forget what they're doing sometimes. Okay. And she's a big girl. She's 32 years old.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So when do the police finally get involved?
Okay, so then we looked ourselves without trying to get too worried about it.
Yeah.
When she didn't show up to get them kids, I alerted the rest of the siblings. I said, hey, Marty isn't none of these houses that I called and checked around her friends. Besides, Sally was gone. She was down the coast with her new husband. Anyways, Mary Jo hasn't seen her. No, but she hasn't called anybody. She hasn't called. Andrew's still at my house. At the very least, this is what got me worried. When she didn't come home Saturday night, okay, Sunday night, But Monday night, when she knew there was school, and Monday, and Andrew's still at my house, and she's not showing up, that's weird. So I said, you know what? We're going to call her bluff on this one. She wants to be, I was pissed. Seriously. Now I feel guilty. But I was freaking mad. I was livid, actually, because number one, I asked her not to leave Andrew at my house. She left him there by himself when we weren't home, because my kids were up at their other grandma's. She insisted that he goes there, so I thought that was weird. Anyways, and so I was already mad at her anyway. And then for not to show up with us when we were going to meet her, then I was mad over that. And then when she doesn't show and get the kids when she said she was going to, I was pissed over that. And then Andrew, he's wondering where his frickin' mom's at. So then I'm mad over that, So I said, you know what? Let's call a bluff on her. We were going to do it before when she didn't come home for a couple of days. Let's call the cops on her. Then when she gets caught, maybe she'll think about it a little bit. So we went to the state police on Tuesday and we made an official missing persons report. At that point, it'd been, they told us when we called Monday, she had to be gone 48 hours. She hadn't quite been gone 48 hours at that point. So the next day we went and filed the official report. And they were still like kind of rolling their eyes, like, yeah, she's 32, she can do whatever she wants, whatever, you know.
Right.
So they didn't really do anything. They never asked any questions. Not one person at that reception ever got questioned, not even one. Their ex-husband never got questioned, even though I told right away what, you know, my theory, because I'm a big mouse. I told my theory right away, and I said, she never made it to town, blah, blah, blah. And they just looked at me, you know, like, whatever.
Okay.
We just kept checking, though, with Sergeant Aveline and Detective Landwehr almost daily, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Because, you know, pretty soon a week goes by, and then another week. And Monday night, after she didn't show up to pick up the kids, that night at dark, it started snowing and snowing and snowing. We never had so much snow. It snowed for solid 12 hours here, and that's really weird for around here. So it made looking for her really difficult.
Right.
Because I'm thinking, truck somewhere, we can't even freaking see it. It's so little. My brother came. He lived in Coos Bay at the time. He came up with his Bronco 4-wheel drive, and we all got in that truck in our big Bronco, and we went looking all over in the hills. We went looking everywhere. There was all the path of where she possibly could have went on the way to town. I mean, we looked around solid for a couple of weeks. We went all over, miles and miles every direction, and because the cops weren't doing anything, they didn't do an effing thing. They had a couple people call them anonymously, saying her at a bar that night. But you know who they saw? My sister Rhonda resembles Marty a lot. She's not quite as dark, but they're little and they look the same kind of their everything. So I think people were seeing Rhonda when they said they'd see Marty around the bars because it was. But anyways, they were sworn to God people had seen her without getting gas, and then they'd seen her across the river, and so they did check all them stories out. But of course, it never came to nothing.
Did the police, being that we've talked about these three guys, and we'll talk about them a little more later, did they go? You said they didn't speak, so Rich, Tim, and the tattoo guy, were they questioned at all at the time?
No, not at all. The only time they got that Tim talked and Rich spoke. When they did a year after story, the Oregonian did. I can't remember. Somebody called and suggested it to them or something. Anyway, they came out and did a story and had a picture of us four standing in front of the store with her son. You probably see it in the papers.
I've seen the picture. Yes, I've seen it.
At that point, they talked to Tim, who she was supposedly talking to, and he tells the thing that she was really having a bad time in her life and she wanted to change her life, and she probably just drove in the ocean. And then Rich tells him, yeah, she was really having a hard time and really needed to change her ways, and she probably just killed herself somewhere, Well, then Pierre never got talked to, but I think I told you we went up to see him, and he told us to quit looking for her because she's dead. So,
So the police get involved. They don't sound to me like they were too energetic about it.
Nope, because everybody said the same thing about her. She was what she was. I mean, and they're like, rolling their eyes like, oh, God, not another person, they're drunk sitting somewhere or whatever. Okay. They just didn't get into it. But then as time went along, there started to grow a little bit more interest.
Yeah.
People, I would be like asking, people don't just vanish. She had no money, no ways. She had $3 in gas in her and no money. She didn't even bring her purse. We found out the week later, I think I told you.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the person. I want to move on to this. We're gonna talk about the person in a moment. I want to move on to this. I want to get into some of these things a little bit deeper. So she's missing. Please get involved. Not sure what to do. Of course the truck's missing too. So let's start here. The actual truck trouble. Was that truck really having trouble? Was it always having trouble, or?
It had a starting issue, and Joe had fixed it. My stepdad was a super good mechanic. He had fixed the starting issue, but it also had a charging issue, and he told her not to take it too far because the cables were loose on it, and he had to put new cables on, but she didn't want to wait for it, so she took the truck instead. But he did have it at his house, from probably February 1st to the 3rd or 4th. Yeah.
Okay.
And while it was there, this is another little, I forgot to tell you this little thing too. Anyways, it's about to do with the truck. When it was sitting at Joe's, my mom and Joe's in Brownsmead getting fixed, it was sitting in the garage in this driveway thing there. Andrew had came down there and put a 7-Up sticker on the window that he'd gotten somewhere. And Joe said, don't put a sticker on there, but he did it anyway. So it was stuck on the window, okay? So that sticker had only been there for a day or two, and nobody had seen it except for Andrew and Joe. Fast forward to a couple months later, and Rich is down there for some reason helping his neighbor with the cow. Joe's neighbor with the cows comes over and tells Mom and Joe that you would be able to miss Marty with that truck with that 7-Up sticker in the window. And then he had a really dumb look on his face as soon as he seen it and left. Mom and Joe were looking at each other like, that's weird, because nobody ever seen that sticker.
Okay.
Well, did he see it that night? Is that when he seen it? Yeah. Anyway, so there's that little story too.
Okay.
All right. Carry on.
Regarding the truck getting jumped, was that the first time that it ever been jumped? I mean, we know it had problems. Was that the first time she ever had to call somebody to get it jumped?
Not in recent times. Before that it was in December there was an issue or two. But then after Joe fixed it, that was the first time. Yeah.
Okay.
She'd had it back days and hadn't had no problems till that night.
Okay. Regarding the truck, did the police, even though they were seemingly not too motivated regarding Marty, but did they put a all points bulletin out for the truck and its license plate number? Did anybody go to any junkyards, anything like that?
We went to a few junkyards. They did nothing. There was never an all points bulletin. We released her dental records. Nobody ever paid no attention to it. We released a thing to a missing persons thing. It was never listed. It was they kind of dropped the ball all the way around. We know that now, but we didn't know it for a couple of years.
Right.
You kind of put your trust in them, and we gave them all kinds of pictures to, and we were so dumb. Now we know not. We did put posters all over. By the way, we put out over 500 posters up and down the coast, and as far as Nevada, I went to Reno. My family and I went to Reno a few months later, and we put posters all the way down that way and clear up into Washington. And that's where we got some of the calls to the cops, seeing things that they might see or hear. And of course, they did check that stuff out, but it was later on. It was like several months later.
Okay. Regarding, all right, so she's at this store, correct? That's where the truck wouldn't start. What kind of, this clerk that's working at the store, what kind of interaction did she and Marty say? Did she say that, what was Marty doing there while she was waiting for somebody to show up to jump this truck? What went on?
Oh, telling Carrie that she'd been in the wedding and that she was heading in to see us. She said, even told Carrie that she was meeting us in town. I know Carrie. I just seen Carrie the other day. She's still around here. Her name's Carrie Wing, and she was there that night working.
And so they didn't have like a deep
general conversation. It wasn't nothing big,
They didn't have a big conversation, like just anything. So what was it? Was Marty sitting out in the truck and she was inside?
Yeah, she was leaned up. She was leaned up against it, waiting for her, smoking a cigarette.
All right, so not a lot of interaction between Marty and this clerk.
No.
Okay.
I think Carrie probably had to run in and wait on a couple more people. The pumps were only like 6 feet from the door. This was an old store. It burned down since then, but it was an old store. I mean, you literally could get out your car, walk 3 steps, and be in the store.
Okay. All right. So we don't have a lot of information there. Your brother was the one who showed up to jump the truck?
Yes.
What did he talk about? What did he say about his interaction with Marty? She didn't even say where she was going.
No, she just said, she asked him if he could get it. Of course, asked if he could jump it, and he said, and it was easy to jump. I guess he got it jumped right away, and he said, you might want to go back home. That's what he told her, because I don't know, that cable don't look very good. She goes, I'm going to meet the girls in town, and then, he was just talking, so he just didn't say much else to her. Just be careful. That's all.
But of course, she didn't end up meeting the girls in town.
No, she never made it.
All right, so she didn't say.
If she would have left then, when she said she would have been there by a little after 10, like she said she was going to be.
Right. I guess what we're saying is she didn't say, well, I'm going to Astoria, I'm going here, I'm going to see Tim. She didn't give any actual destination except for, like you said, she said that she was going to meet the girls.
Yeah, meet the girls, and he assumed that she meant us, but, she didn't say it.
Right. Okay. And when she left, did she go off in the direction of where you were or not?
Yes.
She did?
She did.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, she pulled out and went west on Highway 30, and the Astoria is 12 miles west.
And that's where you were?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to this. We talked about this phone call that she had in which I think you had said that she might have been crying. It was a very emotional phone call. Remind everybody, where did this phone call take place?
At the Lager Restaurant and Bar in Knappa, Oregon, at the crossroads. It's got the restaurant in the front and the bar in the back.
Okay.
And in between there was a little hallway that hooked them together, and there was a payphone hanging on there. And that's where she was talking.
And it is the belief of other people who overheard this conversation that she was talking to Tim.
She said his name 4 or 5 times at least,
okay.
that Laura was here.
All right. Did anybody get an idea of what the content... Of course, she had just seen Tim earlier because he showed up at the wedding unannounced and uninvited. Right. Did anybody get an idea of what the conversation was about?
No, they just said she was clearly upset, crying and everything. Kind of begging him a little bit, like, please, Tim, I'm going to be there. And I think it sounded like maybe he wasn't going to be, and she goes, please just be there. She said that, and just said his name again.
Beware.
Come on, Tim.
Beware.
Come on, Tim. I don't know. Be there. Please be there. You got to help me or something like that. It was, she was like begging him. That's how it was described, like she was begging him.
How long did this, I know you didn't experience it, but how long did this phone call last?
They're guessing right around 5 minutes.
All right, so not a short phone call. Did anybody have an opportunity to even ask Marty what the call was about after she got off the phone?
No. They just asked her if she wanted they just asked her if she needed some help or wanted to ride home. Did she need some help because they knew she was in some kind of distress?
All right, so she gets off the phone, and so all we have is people walking past her or something like that, and, we're not sure exactly, just bits and phrases. That's all we have of that conversation.
Right, correct.
Okay. Did Tim ever own up to this phone call?
He did not.
So his position, even to this day, as far as you know, is that he's never admitted that phone call ever took place.
No.
Okay. All right. So we will come back to him. Now, you were going to mention this before. Now we're going to talk about it. You could say what you need to say about Marty's purse. Somehow it ended up in somebody's trunk. Let's go through that.
Okay, apparently when she left the reception around 7-ish, 7:38, might have been even later because just because the reception was over at 7:30, I don't think she left that early because she wasn't at my mom's long and she was back up at D&D by 9:30, so she must have been at the reception until like 8. But anyways, she must have left about the same time that Sally and her husband left. Anyways, she must have left the purse is all I can figure out. But my mom swears, even though she's older now, of course, but even right away, she swears to God that Marty had her purse with her in Brown's Meat. But that being said, we didn't know where the purse was. We assumed it was with Marty.
Yeah.
But when Sally got home that next Sunday, it was in her trunk of her car.
So this is Sally found the purse in her trunk. All right. And Sally was the woman who got married.
Yes, when she got home, Mary Jo was frantic. This is, like I said, once again, you didn't contact people every minute for every second for everything. Her mom told Sally, my God, Marty's been gone since you left, And Sally goes, well, what the hell? And so she called me and said, what the hell's going on with Marty? And I said, well, she hasn't been home since your wedding. And she goes, well, I have her purse in my trunk. And I said, what in the F?
Yeah.
Because we all assumed she had it with her.
Did Sally have any explanation for that?
She thinks Marty stuck it in there. I was like, that don't sound right to me at all. That did not ever set right with me. To this day, it don't set right with me, especially when my mom swears to God she had it with her.
Later that day.
Yeah. No, I mean that when she left her house that night that she had it with her. So where did she run? Did she run back to Sally's after the thing before the logger? But Sally said she never seen her because she left on her honeymoon before Marty. I mean, after Marty. Yeah, that night before Marty even was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Supposedly she hadn't seen her since the reception.
Right.
So how'd that purse get there? That's my big question. And I told the cops that. I said, okay, my mom says she's seen the purse. It was a black leather purse. It was very distinctive because it matched her jacket. But then it's in Sally's trunk. How the hell did it get there?
And
Weird.
so once again, you know, and I should say, you know, it's been a while since my 20s or whatever. I kind of remember maybe back in the day if women didn't want to carry their purses around, maybe they just take, you know, if they're going into some bar, you know, they might take just their ID and you know, a credit card or something, but the purse and everything might go in a trunk because, you know, you don't want it sitting right there in the car because somebody might break in.
Her wallet was intact with everything in it. Her ID and everything was still there.
And could Sally think of a time when Marty even had the keys to the car to put the...
Well, the only thing that kind of covered her ass was is that when Sally was getting ready to go, and like she said, Marty was leaving too, okay? At that point, they were putting stuff in Sally's trunk because they were going on their honeymoon.
Yeah.
And maybe it got put in there. Maybe she was helping him. She didn't say that she was helping him, but that's my theory is it could have gotten left there easily, I guess. I mean, you can't say that, you know, I mean, it could have happened. Obviously it did.
Right. Something happened. But nobody denies that the purse that was found in that was certainly Marty's purse and had her stuff in it. Like
my mom still has it to this day.
Wow, she does.
Yeah, she ain't letting it go. That's all she's got left.
Wow. I guess what this also means,
maybe
though...
Andrew might have it now because my mom gave Andrew, she found a whole bunch of stuff of Marty's in the attic when she was moving down to her boyfriend's, and big box of stuff that was my sister's, and gave it to Andrew a couple of years ago. She may have gave him the purse, but I don't think she did. I'm going to have to ask her. Because she had it. We seen it. We looked through it. Not that. We did an interview with Channel 6. It was called The Missing Bridesmaid, and we did an interview with him. At that point, we had the purse out on the table, and the newscaster and they had it all on part of the show and all that kind of stuff. So we had it when we did that interview in 21. Or wait, 20. It was 20 because it was the 30th anniversary. And at that point, the purse was still at my mom's. But it was after that she gave Andrew some of her stuff. So I'm not sure if she has it or not.
But nobody denies that's her purse, has all her stuff in it. Oh,
no, it's her purse. Oh, yeah, it even had a love note in there from some weirdo guy that she, you know, Marty was not ugly. She was pretty and nice to everybody. And, you know, men kind of fell in love with her a little bit.
Okay.
She had a couple love notes in there from some weird guy that we ended up tracking down. He was really weird. And we were like, you know anything about this? And he's like, no, I loved her. La, la. Anyways, but he was just some bar guy, I guess. I don't know.
All right, so how is it then? Could Sally come up with any way that somebody else could have put the purse in there?
Nope. She lies so much, it's pathetic. So you can't believe half of anything she said. She's always been a liar her whole life. That's just kind of got her in trouble a lot, and really lied a lot about this whole missing thing. And so her and I had a thing against her, and I wanted to go after her for everything I was worth, but I tried to stay decent. But you know, anything I could catch her up on, I tried to, and she finally moved away.
All right, so Sally, Sally, the woman who got married, maybe has problems with the truth.
She has a real big problem with the truth.
Okay. All right, so we got this purse still in your family. Your mother still has it, and so I guess what we're saying is seemingly, but maybe not. Marty took off, went to that convenience store, truck broke down, brother shows up, jumped it. The whole time she doesn't have her purse, allegedly.
Allegedly. This is what I'm saying. Something is not computing here. Things are not connecting. The dots are not connecting as they should. And nobody really has any answers. I
can understand that. And we just also have to remind everybody, this purse was not discovered until Sally came back from her honeymoon. Right.
It's almost like she picked it up somewhere. It's weird.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to this. Let's talk about all of those guys just a little more. And once again, we want to stay away from anything. We just want to stick to the facts on each of these guys. And we'll start with Richard. He is deceased. Now, you did tell me one of the big points about Richard is that really he only lived a mile away from where the truck broke down.
Correct.
Okay. What did you ever talk to him? Did anybody else in your family ever talk to him one-on-one? Did he ever have anything to say regarding her disappearance, and reminding everybody, you already said early in this conversation that Rich and Marty were still maybe getting together once in a while, even though they weren't a couple anymore. What did he have to say?
That Marty had really bad issues, mentally, emotionally, and drug-wise, and the best thing she could have done was go away and start a new life.
That's what Rich said?
Yes.
Did he ever admit seeing her or talking to her on that wedding day?
No.
Okay.
He said he hadn't seen her for months, and that's a big fat lie, because I saw her talking to him at the store like 3 weeks before the wedding, so he's a liar too. I want to gouge his eyes out.
Okay, well, a little late for that. Did you even know, did anybody ever ask him, you or anybody else, what his alibi would have been for that day? Of course, it's a Saturday, but did he have an alibi for where he would have been during that Saturday, maybe that Saturday night?
I believe he said he was out with his friends.
Okay, that's not the most solid alibi I've ever heard.
No, there was a bar in Swenson at the time that it burnt down in 2004, and it was called the Wiki at the Inn, and everybody went there. I mean, it was the wild joint. They had dancing and all kinds of stuff, and and Marty could have even went in there if she did. Nobody's seen her because everybody, and then there's people there that I knew, and they would have never lied. So she never went there. You could have easily stopped there, but it was only a stone's throw from Rich's house to that place. He literally lives, a couple hundred yards from that bar.
Okay. In your opinion, being that you've been there and most of the people in the audience have not, could Marty have showed up in the truck at Rich's place and nobody else have seen it?
Absolutely. He lived down a little tiny quiet road off the highway.
Okay, so it's not like she would have to park out on the street, like on the curb or something like that?
No.
Okay. Now, Richard, he was married at the time, correct, of this disappearance?
Yeah, has a wife and three little kids at the time.
Okay. And you did say that Rich still was the daughter still living with him? Was one of their daughters still living, or no?
She was, because she lived there because she didn't graduate till 95. So, right. She was still.
All right, so she would have been, for example, if Marty went over to Rich's, it's a very good possibility that her own daughter would have been there.
Yeah, but I think if she went there, she didn't go in the house because Jermaine would, the wife would have been.
Okay. I just have to ask, has the daughter ever been questioned about this? Did she remember where her father was that day?
She don't remember anything. She don't remember a thing. She just remembers that her mom told her she was going to be in a wedding. That's all she remembers.
Okay. All right. So we have Rich. He lives right near there, right near where the truck broke down, just a mile away. They're still getting together once in a while, and even though they're divorced, and we know that can be trouble. And you should know, Linda, we already have a disappearance like that where it got solved, where a divorced couple, Tyler North and his wife, they were divorced. They were still getting together for sex. And she set him up. She lured him to a park, and she and her new boyfriend killed him. And that's been proven in court. Correct. They went to jail.
Correct.
So
there's another unsavory character that's involved in this, and I hate to say his name because my niece married his son.
Well, we don't want to get any names. We'll get in. We can talk about him maybe a little later, but let's just go with these three.
I don't want the name on there, but I have 100%. If anybody did anything to her, it was him.
Okay, we'll get to that eventually. But
okay.
This next guy is the tattoo guy. Was he questioned? Did you ever talk to him? Did anybody else ever talk to him? Did he have an alibi?
My sister Joyce and I drove to Olympia where he had the Electric Rose tattoo, actually north of Olympia between there and Tacoma. There's a little burg, I can't remember what they call it. But anyways, and the little tattoo parlor, and we walked in there, and he told us, I had never met him to his face. I'd only met him, heard about him. My mom had seen him, my sisters had seen him, but I'd never seen him. And he said, I know you're Marty's sister. Don't look for her because she's dead.
That's what she said. He said.
Exactly those words.
How did you ask him how he knew that?
We did. He goes, don't ask. I just know. And he was really rude.
Did you tell the police about that?
What? Yeah,
Did-
I did. It was the Washington State Police and Oregon State Police.
Did they ever go question him when you say this woman's
No,
dead?
because I think they knew of him, and I don't think they did. I think he was some kind of drug thing, and they were scared of him.
Okay. So we have this guy who seemingly, is just saying, well, she's dead, even though I don't know how he would know that unless he caused her disappearance or saw her die or something.
Or was in on it somehow.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But that's what he said.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to Tim. Of course, Tim, by the way, everybody, is still alive. We already know that he was at this wedding uninvited, so he did see Marty that day. And then there was this phone call, which he denies. And then you had told me, though, at one point then he called, like, your mother asking about Marty or something. What was that?
He called. Yeah, he called. No, it was me. I wanted to see what happened if I called his out. I called his number, and he answered, and I answered, and apparently I sound like her. And he goes, "Is this Marty?"
Huh.
Like, no. But we're looking for it. I think at that point it had been a couple weeks. Maybe a month.
Okay, so you call him, and he...
I thought that was a weird response.
Okay. So you call him, and then let's keep in mind, though, if that's what he said, he goes, "That's you, Marty? I thought you were dead." He didn't say anything like that.
No, I don't. Okay. Yeah, so I don't. It's just weird. It caught me off guard. I said, "No, It's not." But we're looking for her. Would you know anything about that, Tim? Because nobody had ever talked to him. I was the first one to talk to him. He goes, "Why would I know anything about that?" I said, "Because you showed up at the wedding and then she talked to you on the phone." "No, I didn't."
Yeah.
He said.
Okay.
But that's weird. We all saw you there.
All right, so we know what the tattoo guy said. Yeah, don't bother looking for her. She's dead. Did Tim ever offer up his own theory as to what happened to Marty?
Just when the paper interviewed him for that 1 year deal because he was on the list of characters, and his theory was she took her truck and drove into the ocean.
That's what he said. Into the ocean.
Exactly. It's in the paper. It's in the paper.
Okay, great. And how close is the ocean to there?
To his house, about a quarter mile.
Wow, that close.
Straight out to Sunset Beach. He's right on there. Yeah.
Was that area ever searched?
Yes.
It was.
Later on, many years later.
Okay.
Yeah. Never found he's not right away. And things can change. As you know, on the beach, things change pretty fast.
Yeah. Did he have an alibi? Did Tim ever offer up to you and anybody else, well, I was here when she went missing that night? Did he ever say anything?
No. He never said anything. No.
Okay.
He never said anything. I don't think they ever asked him, to tell you the truth. He volunteered what he said. They ever asked him a question.
What was the status, as best as you can tell, understanding you have your own life to live and everything else, but what was the status of their relationship between Tim and her, Marty, at the time of her disappearance? What was the status?
Well, I thought they were dating because she was always running out there all the time and, calling him on the phone and this and that. And then for some reason, the week before the wedding, she was at my house most of the time. Like she was hiding out or something. She wasn't even going to my mom. She was staying at my house. So I thought that was also very weird. All she said was, I get tired of listening to Mom and Joe talk about, get mad at me for drinking and da-da-da-da. So I just took that, whatever. You can stay here. I don't care. I'm not going to turn her away. That's for sure.
Okay.
So, but she went to Mom's the night before the wedding. She went to Mom's because Joyce was going down there to bring her dress because my sister made the dresses. Mm-hmm. And she had to, in between December and February when she started making the dresses, she had to take Marty's dress in about an inch. She'd gotten way thinner. So something was going on. It was weird.
Okay. Let me ask you this. As best as you can tell, being that you did say that she got into some drugs, even as hard as crack cocaine at the time before her disappearance, do you have an opinion on where was she getting the crack from?
I'm guessing one of them jackasses she was running around with. Don't you think? That's a lot.
I guess so, but Do you think it was Rich? Do you think it was the tattoo guy? It doesn't sound like it was Tim. Do you think it was the tattoo guy, or is this other guy that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think Rich might have gave it to her just to get her to come over there. But I honestly think it had to have been Tim, because people that worked with Fred Meyer surmised Tim was on drugs. Because he didn't work there that much longer after Marty disappeared. He got transferred up to Yakima, Washington.
Okay.
But, everybody that knew Marty knew she was dating him, and they were kind of not being that nice to him at work. Because they just had a feeling he had something to do with it, because they didn't like him. And my son thinks the same thing. He never liked him either. He went with Marty and Andrew to the house, and he said Tim was just weird.
All right, so
stuff.
We just have to make clear on something. We don't know this for a fact,
right.
But knowing the people in her life at the time, your best guess is that she was getting the crack, and nobody died. And surely that's a fact. I don't think you'd make that up. Your best guess would be Tim. It could be somebody else, but of the people you know, you thought it might be Tim because she was the guy she was seeing the most.
Yeah. Yep. And she seemed to not be able, even though she was mad at him, couldn't stay away from him. I think that's weird. That to me, fiction.
Okay. You did say that you wanted to mention one other guy. I guess we'll have to stay away from names, but you said that there was some other guy that you wanted to mention.
There was a guy that Rich was partners with. Rich Evans had a cedar contract that he had a big loader and a big cat hauling cedar out of what they called the watershed in behind Swenson up Market Road. Okay. This guy he was in partners with was an unsavory character. He'd been involved in different bad things in California, and that's why he moved up here. And he wasn't scared to do anything. He was, kind of like a criminal, but, I think he avoided prison because he came up here. Anyways, and he did not like my sister one little bit. I think it's because her and Rich were carrying on, and I think he may have put a pass on her and she denied him. I'm not sure. But he told me and I'm her sister, and he told me and looked right at me and said, I can't stand your sister, I hate her.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a weird thing to say to me.
I guess. Yeah.
Okay, there's no guessing games there. Okay, but because I didn't really party, like I said, but I'd walk and wake you up because my husband would be there and maybe stay 15 minutes and leave out. But he was sitting there talking to him, and my husband worked with him at Nygaard Logging. He worked a little while in logging. For the most part, he did that cedar cutting thing, and they had so many opportunities. That's just, I wouldn't have put nothing past him.
Can you think of a way that she would have encountered that guy? Of course, we know Rich. We know she knows Tim. We know. How would she have maybe encountered that guy after getting the truck fixed?
Oh, through Rich. Just through Rich.
Just through Rich. Okay.
Yeah.
Regarding the truck, of course, it's missing too. We can't forget that. And you should know, Linda, people disappearing with their vehicles, fairly rare, about 5% of the time. Of these guys, can you think of, and of course there may be other guys that we don't know about, we can't talk about people we don't know, but of these guys, any of them have the means to get rid of a truck?
Yes.
How?
Dig it down with a loader. My husband ran a loader for 25 years for Nygaard. He could dig a hole and bury it, and you wouldn't know it was there, and he could do it in 10 minutes.
Okay. And would that be which one of those guys had access to a loader like you're describing?
Rich, he owned it, and his partner.
Okay.
And it was probably 15 minutes from their house, maybe 20.
And that land, of course, we're talking, quite a while ago. What is that land now? Who owns that land? Can anybody get access to that land, or what?
No, it's private. It's private. It was owned by a private company back then, and now it's owned by the city of Astoria, and it's called the Watershed.
Mm-hmm.
It's protected by the environmentalists, and by law. It's locked up. It's got cameras all around it, and they don't let nobody in there for any reason.
Even if a woman who might have been murdered is buried there, they wouldn't allow.
Yeah, in the famous words of the town guy that's in charge, what they call manager, the Adventures with Purpose went to try to get permission to go there, and they said, and I quote, nothing like that ever went on there. That's what he said.
Okay.
That's, he just looked, what? like, did you just say that to me? What?
Okay.
But you can't argue with something like that. So.
Well, being that you brought it up, we'll move on to that. You have had, of course, Adventures with Purpose, well-known scuba group with a YouTube channel going out. They have found missing people in their cars, usually in lakes and rivers. You had them come out. Where did they go? How long ago was this? How many places did they look at? What can you describe? Describe all of that.
Well, after we were on televised with that Bridesmaid Missing show on TV on the 30th anniversary, so that was in 2020, I got contacted by Jared from Adventures with a Purpose saying that a viewer from Channel 6 News had let them know about this missing girl in a truck from Astoria. They'd never heard anything about it before, but maybe the family would like it if you'd go there and look for her. So he contacted me, and that April, which was only 2.5 months after her 30th anniversary, they showed up and dove and looked with sonar in Brownsmead, because my mom lives in Brownsmead, which is basically an island, and it's got dike roads. Well, there's water all along there, right? And it's not too deep, but there are deep holes. So they went looking through that whole thing inch by inch. It took them like 2.5 days to go, and it's not a real big area, but they wanted to go slow and make sure they didn't miss anything. And they looked and looked. They found tractors and this and that, all kinds of stuff. They didn't find her truck. But they looked, and they did at that time. That was when they really didn't have as much stuff back then. But then a year and a half later, they called again and came and looked in different water areas on the main river and the main Blind Slough, which is a way bigger area, and did the same thing with sonars, and they're brand new. They actually dive down when they see something, and they covered a really big area again, and nothing showed up there. And so then fast forward another year and a half, they came in early 2024 again, looked along all Highway 30, clear to Tim's house, every little tiny nook and cranny that had water in it, even if it didn't look like much, they looked. Then he just came. He was just here not very long ago, like 2 months ago. Jared came with just one friend. He had a couple other ideas of where he wanted to look, and that's when he went and encountered the City of Astoria guy, asked him about the watershed, because now they have one of those sensors that go into the ground and detect things underground up to 15 feet under. And so he wanted to go up the watershed and look, because, we had told him the story too. And he just absolutely could not go up there. And so he's trying to figure out how to get around that. He's not giving up. So that's 4 times they've been here. Bless their hearts, All
right. So they're looking in what they think. Of course, they have experience in this area. They're used to looking at routes and maps and bodies of water and trying to determine what seems most likely that somebody in a car might be. They've done those places, and nothing's been found.
Correct.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So she's, talking to Tim and crying and everything, and she takes off. I guess the one big point we have to remember about all of this is that she was probably drinking and driving. It very well may be that there's foul play here. It's one of these guys, somebody else got rid of her in the truck. But on the other hand, she was drinking and driving. We know oftentimes people go off the road, but she hasn't been found all these years later.
Right.
Are you having, even though...
I really don't.
Are you going to have divers out there again? Any other places to check? I mean, it doesn't sound like you can get access to that property, but...
Other places that... you can go farther out in the slough than they went. They just didn't have time to, because when it's deep like that, they have to go really slow.
Yeah.
And it does take a long time, and, they're going to make another plan. Yeah, he's not giving up, because it took one guy. It took him 8 trips to find one guy. And they did finally find him.
It's not something that's automatic. That is certainly
some of them true. They find a few hours, and some of them take months, years, whatever.
Good.
But I bless their hearts. They do it all on money donated and stuff.
Right.
They don't expect anything.
Yeah, they didn't charge you anything.
Nope.
Yeah. So I have to ask, we've come to this question, how hard have the last, over 30 years been?
It's been difficult. Your life went on a road that you did not expect, I expected my sister to be with me during life, and she's not here. and it's really hard on all of it. It took its toll on our family. We're not the same, that's for sure. On the other hand, it's sad, but you learn to appreciate everything because you never know what's going to happen. And I'm not saying that to be cynical or negative. I mean, just savor it and enjoy it. Because I think back every day, what did I say to her the last time I seen her,
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have left. Maybe I should have stayed there. But the what ifs don't bring her back,
Yeah.
So, and I wish we would find her just for my mother. I was hoping she would know who her daughter is, but I honestly believe she'll see her anyway at some point. I believe that, and that belief and that faith gets you through. And I learned a long time ago that you certainly never give up.
No, cannot give up.
Never assume, never give up.
What about her children?
We never stayed close. Rena was never close with us because Rich kept him. That was his thing to keep her away from us because he was just But Andrew was just here at my mom's birthday, and he's doing really well in life. He's a surveying engineer, and he has a really nice place and a really nice fiance, and he doesn't have any kids, but he's doing really good in life. So I'm sure he misses his mother like anything. He still wonders who he is, but
the daughter, no contact with her at all, never reaches out, not even at Christmas.
No, nothing. No, she's a lost cause pretty much.
I know that you have a Facebook page, other things set up for Marty's disappearance. Why don't you tell the listeners about that right now?
Oh, I have find Marty Evans or find Marty Benton Evans on Facebook. If anybody has any ideas, if anybody knows any little bit of information, it sometimes it only takes that one little tiny thing that you don't think means nothing to turn a whole thing around. Seeing something, hearing something, having something, maybe somebody found something, don't ever hesitate. My number and name and everything's on Facebook. Yes. Her family, if you have anything positive to say, just get on there and say it, and don't hesitate to contact any of us about Marty's disappearance. We hope one of these days we do find some little thing out. Anything positive would be wonderful. And I just, hope to pray to God that someday it does get answered.
Linda, any final words before we complete this interview?
Just that anybody and everybody who loves somebody, savor every second, because you don't know when they're not going to be here. And I hope that whoever has had anybody missing in their family, God bless them all, because it's a big hole in your heart and it never gets filled. It gets filled with memories, but then that only goes so far. And my sister was my best friend, and I'll never forget her, ever.
Linda, thank you for appearing on this episode of Unfound.
Okay, I appreciate your input, and I appreciate what you're doing. And on behalf of her family, we thank you very much.
You're welcome. And that was my August 3rd, 2025 interview with Linda, sister of Martha, Lavonne, Marty Evans. I thank her for joining me and all of you on this episode. I made a map analysis video on where Marty was allegedly going to be driving that night. You can find it on Unfound's YouTube channel. Regarding the other disappearance Linda mentioned involving a bus driver, the victim was Hilda Victoria Vicky Brown. She was 25 years old, and she was from Rainier, Oregon. The disappearance occurred in 1976. Coincidentally, almost on the same day that Marty disappeared in 1990. Although Vicky's remains, except for a tooth, have never been found, a mechanic at the bus garage where she worked was eventually convicted. His name is Stephen Helfin. You can look up the rest of that case for yourselves. My guess is about an hour into this episode, you could see why the theme is what it is. We have a lot of numerous yet common causes to consider for Marty's disappearance. Remember, when we say suspect something, that doesn't have to mean that something is a human being. Sure, we have the guys, Rich, Tim, Pierre, whoever else. Exes and currents and male acquaintances always must be examined. Where were they? What kind of guys were they? What kind of relationships did they have with Marty? What I would say is that I didn't hear necessarily anything to factually include any of them. But I didn't hear anything to factually exclude them either. But we also need to suspect mental health. Marty was in a very bad place. You don't need a PhD in psychiatry to know it. Yes, I know Marty would have never left her kids, but parents are committing suicide all the time. We also need to suspect addiction, one of the most common topics on this podcast. And we can even leave out the crack cocaine from this. That Linda believes Marty was drinking while intoxicated is enough to believe Marty had a drinking problem too. And that could have caused her to weave off the road, like drunks do every minute in the United States. Yet, to make this even more complex, we have to contemplate if this all happened in combo. Marty was driving and drinking, but made it to her destination. She bought drugs, overdosed, and somebody covered it up. Or drugs weren't involved at all, and Marty was trying to commit suicide, and somebody tried to stop her, and in the process, Marty died anyway, and somebody covered it up. Or Marty actually did weave off the road and got stuck. A stranger came along and took advantage of a drunk woman, then took the truck to some location where it will never be found. It all gets very complex very fast. But that's the reason the word suspect in the phrase the usual suspects is plural. If you'd like to hear and read more of my in-depth analysis into the disappearance of Marty Evans, please go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Sign up and partake in the Unfound blog. Until then, I leave the public theorizing up to you. And that's the program. I'm Ed Densel, and you've been listening to